Hey guys, so just a quick update. What's going on? So the new teacher is actually coming in later this afternoon to watch the last two classes I have today. So from 4:15 to 5 after 6, which is pretty cool. I wasn't expecting her to start watching classes until the end of this month, like the 27th is what she told me. But apparently, she wants to get started a little bit earlier, sooner than later, which is great. I really want the students and parents to have as much exposure to her as possible, just to keep the numbers up, as they say, once I leave. And of course, to start everybody off on the right foot and make sure everyone feels good about the new changes. So, yeah, it's coming together. It's kind of a weird process to be a part of, because I spent a large amount of time, money, and energy and thought building all of this up over what's now approaching 6.5 years, which is crazy. Like, time goes by so quick. So I started here in 2014, about 3 months before my 33rd birthday. So I was 32, which is really just a stone's throw away from my 20s, And it's just kind of like ear to the grindstone, day in, day out, work, 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 work. So much to do, things to think about, things happening. And now I'm looking at like 10 months away from turning 40. It's so amazing. But I feel good about it for sure. It's going to be emotional and things, but that's just life. You enter one phase and um, it's kind of on the way up to the peak. There's all kinds of expectations and experiences and relationships and emotion generally. I think we're very emotional as human beings. We don't get it's a really weird situation because we don't really get that much of the big picture, but we certainly get more than the basics. If you think about it, like a dog or a cat or any kind of animal, they're just kind of focused on the moment, satisfying immediate needs. They don't really stop and think about anything at all that we know of. But humans are in this weird middle ground where it's like we have this ability to perceive and comprehend and theorize and extrapolate, but we don't really know what's going on completely, and we don't really have enough time to figure it out. I mean, even 100 years is too short. So that's one reason to be glad for all these lineages, of people who've devoted their lives and contributed sometimes a lot, sometimes just very little to a school of thought or some kind of practice that helps us understand ourselves a little bit better. And they're all over the place. I think about it, like Buddhism's a huge one, very old. Even Western psychology, Jung and what's his name, Freud, and so on and so forth. And even some of the Western philosophers, extending back into the days of ancient Greece, they've all kind of contributed to this pool of information and experience we can tap into. So that does help. But still, there's just moments in life where you're like, man, I really don't know what to do, and I feel like I should do this. I hope it works out, and that's kind of where I am. And that happens a lot in not just in life, but in my new type of work, software development. There's so many variables, and no pun intended, and it can be difficult to navigate. But I think having motivation, the right kind of motivation, is really important. So it can be something like, I want to provide a better environment for my children, or I want to have a better schedule, or so I can do something productive with myself. It's kind of a dead end to just be like, yeah, I want to have more free time so I can eat and watch TV. That loses its luster, I think. You just end up kind of fat and lethargic and not sure what to do with yourself, even to a greater degree. So I do feel that moving on is the most realistic thing in terms of the future. I've said it so many times, but it's a danger to get too comfortable, I think, especially over here, because it's like when you come to a fork in the road, you can go left or right, and let's say those roads diverge indefinitely at a 45-degree angle. They go forever. So the further you go down one road, the further away you are from wherever the other road would have taken you. And life is full of those little forks in the road, bifurcations they call them. and it's sometimes you don't know where one road leads at all, and sometimes you might have an understanding of where either road leads, but only to a certain point. And then once you've taken that road, it's rare, if not impossible, to be able to take the one you didn't take. There's all these factors in life, like the passage of time and how it changes you. Even if I were to just drop shop and go try to pick up where I left off, when I left Seattle, I would find myself to be a very different person. I would probably be doing very different things with my time. A huge percentage of my friends have moved away over there. In fact, quite a few. There's still some friends from back in the day around, but back in those days, I was riding my bicycle everywhere and practicing Tai Chi. I didn't have any kids, and I was a kid, really, myself. I did try to revisit my past back in 2011. It was really weird. I interviewed for this job. I want to say it was like October or November of 2010 for a teaching position at a local elementary school, and they liked me, and I was pretty sure I had it, but I got a message from them saying, "Hey, look, you don't have a degree. We know you have a marriage visa. We liked what we saw, et cetera, but we can't really make an exception for this one. So sorry, we can't offer you the job." And I was like, okay. I was scheduled to go into a meditation retreat over the New Year. Actually, it was like late December to I think it was the day of it started. Actually, may have been my birthday, which is crazy. Anyways, it was this 10-day retreat, and then on either side of that, there was basically it was like 12 days because it took to get up to Kyoto. It's like half a day, and then you have to take this train way out into the countryside, and then you get there in the evening, and they get you registered, and you get your room, and then you go to bed, and then 4:30 the next morning, bing, bing, these bells wake you up, and that's it for the next 10 days. There's no talking, no reading, no phones, no food other than what you're given, no writing. It's basically like you go in, and everything except your clothes you just pass on to the attendants, and the only real kind of time you're exposed to anything that's not basically your own mind and whatever you can sense with your five senses in terms of what's in the environment is nightly Dharma talk, where they kind of talk about the lineage and things. And anyways, it was crazy hard. I thought like, okay, I can do it. I've sat down for 20 minutes before, not moved, but this was 10.5 hours a day, and just like unreal and so hard for me. But I got through it. And then the very last day, the last half of the day, they let us start talking again. So anyways, when I got out of that, I came home and just kind of like, wow, this is different. And I had an email from the school that said, hey, we changed our minds. We realize you're actually still working on your degree, so we're going to offer you the position. And so I was like, wow, okay. At the time I was ecstatic. I thought it was just going to be this amazing career, where I was like an actual teacher, quote unquote. And it turned out to be anything but. It was a very toxic environment. And anyways, that's, I got out of there. It was one more force to motivate me to start my own business. But in the interim there, before I started the new job, I was able to finagle like a month where I wasn't working. I immediately put in my notice at my current job. My boss was not happy at all. He was expecting me to put like 3 months notice or something, and I gave him like 6 weeks. Still, though, it caused quite a kerfluffle, but I was the one that actually went out and found my replacement, and she turned out to be a massive asset for the school. Very motivated, hardworking, lots of creative ideas, really helped that school out a lot, I think, because my boss was, at the time, his biggest concern was like, okay, as long as a certain amount of money is coming in and I have time to surf. He was very distant from the actual day-to-day operations, and he kind of, anyways, we make the bed, we lie in it. But so during that time, I went back to Seattle for about 3 weeks. I had a friend who was living in this building. It was right on the edge of Pioneer Square in downtown, and it was this really interesting place. You had to have some kind of a portfolio, either in music or art, and I think you could also be like video editing. Basically, you had to be a working artist of some kind. They were on the city program where they could provide you with housing based on that. So that was a really interesting time. I was 29, so I'd been away from the U.S. At the time. I think it was like 3.5 years. I came over 2007, just over 3 years, which is weird. 2, 3. Anyways, so it was still kind of a lot of things that were there before were still there, and I kind of literally revisited my past. I found myself living in Seattle again and going to the old haunts, and borrowed my friend's bicycle, and it was very interesting. You know, I don't think we get that chance in life to so viscerally revisit our old stomping grounds. You know, because a lot of times we tend to grow up a lot more slowly. You know, like you still stay in the same area, and like maybe you'll come across a photograph of yourself 10 years ago or something, or run into a friend you haven't talked to since the old days. But in this case, it was really like I completely left my daily life and returned to a former life, and it had its ups and downs. Part of me saw like, you know, just kind of like how generally like confused and also like a little bit sad I was as a younger man. I didn't really know what I was doing with my life, and I was spending a lot of time seeking immediate rewards in the form of like exercise, really, you know, practicing martial arts a lot and riding my bike a lot and making those a priority. And I just started to realize like how lost I was as a young man, and how much has changed since then, you know. And that's not really something I'll probably be able to do again in this life to that degree, because now I have 3 kids. At that time, my first son was a baby. He was only a couple months old. But I told myself, like, I've got to do this, you know. And part of it was also to go see my old teacher, which was I've done that a few times now. But yeah, so what was I talking about here? I kind of wandering. So yeah, I mean, at that time when I was, you know, way younger, I had no idea what was going to happen, and it turned out, you know, one day my coworker was late at work. It used to be I worked the upstairs section. Well, it was kind of split level by like 5 steps, but it was still up the stairs. I worked the upstairs section at a restaurant on Capitol Hill, which is long since gone now. It was called B&O Espresso, and they lasted the better part of 40 years. They opened in '76, and I think they closed in 2012 or 13. A lot of development happened in Seattle. A lot of new tech money came in and just blew up the rents and brought a lot of people from elsewhere in the country in, and kind of started a new chapter for the city. So anyways, I was working at this restaurant upstairs, and the deal was my coworker would come in and I would move to the downstairs section, and he would stay in the upstairs section because upstairs was smoking. He didn't mind that. So he's running late, like 5 minutes, and these 3 Japanese girls come in, and the host seats them in the upstairs section, and she's like, "Trevor, can you take him? I'm sorry, I know." His name was Sean, I think. Really funny guy. He was like, "I was, you know, can you take him? I'm sorry, Sean's not here yet." I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And then one thing led to another, and one of those girls ended up being my future wife. And I ended up here in Japan, and life can just be so unpredictable. But the motivation at the time I decided to come over here it was a good one, you know. I want to stay with this woman because she's a good woman. You know, she's gonna have a good job in Japan. I can very easily find a job being a native English speaker. My parents really love her. My father came from England to the United States in the early '70s, and he was like, "Hey, go to Japan. You're not gonna get this kind of chance again." Of course, he had no idea what Japan was actually like at all. You know, like most people, if you've never been over here, there's just no comparison. We have this idea based on like the movies and sushi and, you know, Japanese traditions and customs, which are very beautiful. It is a very beautiful country, and they can be a very beautiful people. But it's also a vastly different culture and a completely different language. And so it takes a lot more to integrate into the society than it would for someone moving from one English-speaking country to another. But that's how it goes. So I had good motivation coming over here, and I guess somehow I've been able to make forward progress here, to a degree. Not as much as I would have liked. And there's always this feeling of like, was it really the right decision? I'll never know, I think that to myself, and my answer to myself is, I'll let you know. There's really no telling. And people can go through so much in one life, changing countries and cultures. I mean, you think about like the World War II generation. I had an aunt who was born in 1909, possibly 1908. She passed away when she was 97 in 2006. The same week my mother passed away, actually. I think about what she would have seen. She would have been like a grade school student when World War I was ending, 1918. She would have been 8 or 9, so roughly my oldest son's age. And then, 1918 to 45, what is that? 38, 20 plus years later, she would have been in her late 20s when World War II started, and she would have lived through the Great Depression, and the Roaring '20s, all of that, and then seen all of World War II at an adult age, and then the Korean War and the 50s and the 60s. There's massive development in the United States, and Vietnam, and then all the political drama in the 70s and 80s and 90s. It's unfathomable to imagine how much change she saw in her life. So that's just how it is, I guess. We just kind of have to deal with the cards we're dealt with, and hopefully somehow find a way to kind of take a break and step back and look at it, and have some sense of perspective, I think, because the whole thing is just so vast and crazy. And over so fast as well. Like, I'm getting to the point now where it's like I can look back on memories from 10 years ago, and I'm just like, that's weird. That was really 10 years ago. You think about, like, if you're 25, 10 years ago, you're just finishing junior high, starting high school, and then 10 years before that, you're in kindergarten. It's just crazy to think about. Now, 10 years ago, I was here in Tokushima. Early 2010, 2011. So, anyways, definitely time for the next chapter. The idea of like forking away and never having a chance is I think it's done with. I think remote software development is, the more I think about it, it's probably the only real option to be able to kind of live in Japan and the United States with no real over-the-top hardship in the transition, because the work is the same, although it would be very expensive to move 5 people back there. Probably just have to sell a lot of stuff and take the bare essentials. But even then, then you find yourself in the States again. It's like, was this really the right idea, So I guess it's better to look very, very carefully before you leap, and check your emotions. Why are you doing this? Are you upset about something? Are you doing it because you're angry, or you just want to kind of destroy the situation now? Are you doing it because you're desperate, or you're falling under the spell of some self-generated fantasy, and you're kind of projecting these, grandiose qualities on something and setting yourself up, So, yeah, step back and breathe. That's why exercise is so important to me. I think it just connects you with your body and stops you from overthinking to a degree. So anyways, I got another hour 45 minutes on the clock here with my software job, so I should get back to the computer.